Western North Carolina businesses, they need your financial support now more than ever in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. This month, Darby Communications, based in Asheville, North Carolina, is donating its ad space here on the Rock Fight to help other outdoor businesses in Western North Carolina get back on their feet. The outdoor industry is a major contributor to Western North Carolina's economy, and Darby Communications is asking people to donate to the Outdoor Business Alliance Hurricane Helene Relief Fund, which supports outdoor industry businesses in their recovery and supports their staff as they rebuild in the wake of the storm's devastation. Now is the time to help the outdoor community help build back what we lost in Western North Carolina. Head to outdoorbusinessalliance.org and click Donate Today to get started.
Rock fight, rock fight, rock fight, rock fight, rock fight, rock fight.
Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and joining me today, he's so hopped up on steroids, he might fulfill his childhood dream of playing for the Dodgers. It's Justin Hausman.
I think that's all it takes, right? Just like they don't even bother to like scout people. They're just like, "Are you juiced? You on the juice? Nice, you're in."
I think when you sign your kid up for Little League, they're like, "Here's your starter package." You know, if you take it, you'll go to the bigs.
Awful lot of syringes in this gear list here for Little League.
Here's the cost for the uniform. You want to add a bat, a glove, and here are the needles.
Because you're definitely curious about what the hell Colin's talking about. I'm not taking steroids. Really,
that would be awesome.
At all, actually. Although I have thought about it. I have definitely thought about it. I've thought about testosterone, thought about HGH, all that sort of stuff. Just when you're laying in bed going, I wonder if I could get like buffer or whatever. If you want to know what he's talking about, it's in the newsletter. Had a little nasty brush with a nasty brush, and was prescribed a shit ton of steroids, and I took them for 3 days and proceeded to have the most intense anxiety of my life and stopped taking them. So we'll just see how it goes.
When you think about the things you hear about typically with people take a medicine or something, or some sort of medicine, and then there's a side effect, and there's it'll like upset your stomach or whatever. Like steroids, like I don't know if you can take them and have them like not fuck with you. You know what I mean? Every time I take, you at least get a little like kind of high, like low level like buzz when you're on this stuff, and not a good buzz, right? It's just like, oh shit, you can tell I'm on steroids, and it kind of gets overlooked.
Yeah, and a couple of my like super endurance athlete friends love prednisone, which is what I was prescribed. And they're like, if you're not gonna take it, can I have it? Like they love it. Like they take it before workouts and like get a more like a stronger workout in or whatever. It's crazy. A lot of people around here just have it anyway because there's so much poison oak. That if they get a poison oak rash, they have prednisone lying around and they just like take it for a few days.
And that makes it go away.
I guess it worked on mine. I mean, like check out the newsletter, folks. See the photo. I mean, it looks like Night of the Living Dead style, like rotting, flesh rotting.
Yeah, we'll post. Justin wrote a column for it, so we'll post that at least separately on its own too on the website in the next couple of days. So the photos will be out there. It's pretty rough. Everybody I showed those pictures to before we put it in the newsletter, I'm like, hey, Justin, yeah, check it out. This was his leg. The first picture when he went to the hospital thinking he had an infection, and everyone goes, "Oh God!" And then I go, "Oh, just hold on." And then I showed them the second photo, and then they either pass out or throw up. I mean, it's pretty rough.
I went to a dermatologist yesterday. I didn't really need to, but like it was scheduled. Like it's getting much better, and it was scheduled. So I was like, well, I'll go. Just I've never had this happen before, so I guess I may as well go and check it out. And she was legitimately surprised by how bad it got. She was just like, holy shit! Like obviously it got into the cut that you had on your leg. It must have, because I've never really. She's like, that's pretty intense. Like that's pretty bad. So,
well, before we get into the rest of the stuff today, we do have a few housekeeping items for you. Number one, if you haven't followed and rated the Rock Fight wherever you're listening to this podcast, do that right now. Like we'll just keep talking. Yeah. You can do it while we're talking. Mm-hmm. Like take your phone out of your pocket,
unless
click
you're driving.
Follow. Oh yeah, good point.
Don't
do it while you're driving. and
unless you're in a Waymo. Unless you're in a driverless taxi, then you can go ahead and do it.
I got approved for Waymo actually on my app. We don't have it in San Diego yet. I got approved only for Waymo in Los Angeles. So I was like, yeah, I want to try it.
Not only do we have it in San Francisco, we have a shit ton in San Francisco. I mean, they're everywhere at this point. And you know what? I got to say, 9 times out of 10, they're going faster than I think they should be. Like I'll see one turning a corner. I'll be like, can that thing handle that? And it's just like around the corner. I'm like, that's faster than like a human would do it. I don't trust those things at all.
I don't think I'm going to trust them, but I'm in favor of it becoming a thing because I'm sure that the statistics are correct that it is safer than human drivers, and it ultimately, if that's successful, that does lead probably to way fewer cars on the road. So I'm in favor of this experiment.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm very worried about it replacing like real income for people.
Oh, that's a real thing.
Yeah, it's like so. Yeah, right. So like, oh, okay, cool. So it's fewer car crashes. That's great. At least one would think. But also like, okay, cool. But also like, you know how many people rely on like income from Uber? Like,
oh, totally.
So
plus, have you seen like the little Wallies that are driving around now delivering food? The little like automated.
I have not.
Like,
I've heard of this. I have not. But it's like
I almost ran into one in LA this weekend, and I turned a corner and it was and it's a crosswalk. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what is that thing?
Just, it is like, speaking of anxiety, it is so insane to me that we like it seems like collectively everybody is whistling past the graveyard right now. Like the entire Western world is at least America wise is doing that. Just you know what I mean by that, right? Just like
because of the AI and all the automation,
like everything, and it's like
but weren't you the guy with the horse and buggy who was saying the same thing about automobiles back in the day? Weren't they like, oh no, this is the end of the world's coming because we have self-driving buggies?
In some ways, sure, but that impacted one industry. You know what I mean? Like this is literally impacting everything. Like there was a big story a couple of days ago that the CEO of Klarna, which is that like pay like gradually app, like if you're buying something online, it'll be like, you want to use Klarna, where you can like pay over installments or whatever. He hasn't hired anybody in 2 years because he says AI can do all the jobs. So it's like that has nothing to do with Waymo, obviously. You know what I mean?
So you should also subscribe to Rock Fight's newsletter.
Sorry.
That's amazing.
How did we get on to the AI thing?
I don't even know. I was talking about rating the podcast.
Waymo. I brought it up.
Oh, you brought up Waymo. That's
Yeah.
what it was. Oh my God, that was amazing. Cool. So hey, also guys, if you like, we were talking about the newsletter, you should subscribe to the newsletter. You can get pictures of Justin's gross leg if you subscribe to the newsletter.
I mean, normally my legs are fine. Yeah, that's not always a gross leg.
Think about how you're missing out on things like that. But that is top-notch content. So head to rockfight.co and click join the mailing list. I think Justin now is going to tell you how you can reach out to the show.
Yeah, you can follow us on our socials or sociales. Rockfight is on Instagram and TikTok, where we are Rockfight Co. So it'll be at Rockfight Co. obviously. And you can see videos of our parting shots on YouTube, where we are simply at Rockfight. Also, you can email all your feedback and or questions about gear or Poison Oak or the AI revolution right there at what's our email address? myrockfight@gmail.com.
That's it.
That'll get right to us.
Well, last week here in the Rock Fight, Justin and I talked about the social media response to an article that highlighted Davis, West Virginia as a mountain town you've never heard of. And our conversation focused mostly on the comments than the article itself. But we had a bunch of responses to our commentary today. So kind of breaking out a mini mailbag and highlighting a couple of them. So the first one was from a listener named Charlotte. And it's on the topic of the town of Davis itself. So Charlotte said she moved to Davis, West Virginia after leaving a corporate job a few years back. And in her email, Charlotte says that she lived in that town for 6 years, was on the town council for a couple of years, and the planning commission. I moved away a year and a half ago because of how crazy things got there, and not the tourists and non-locals. It was actually the locals that drove me the most insane.
I get it.
They seem to think that they own the town, and anyone who wasn't born and raised there is a pariah who is ruining everything. Despite the mayor and council's best efforts to help the town plan for the increasing population of visitors, the locals fought us at every step, including voting down a zoning ordinance that would have limited the number of short-term rentals where businesses could be located. She said the access to the trails from that town is unbeatable, and it is so beautiful there, which is obviously why Outside was covering it. And it's why Charlotte says she and her husband moved there. But I can't bring myself to go back up there anymore because of the way the locals behave. I don't know, man. What do you think? I mean, the kind of the thing we talked about was the premise of, look at this town, and then everybody freaking out, like, stop bringing attention to these towns. I thought this was kind of an interesting point of view from somebody who actually lived there.
I mean, a lot of what she's saying could be said about my town, especially right now. So I live in Fairfax, California, which is, the birthplace of mountain biking, blah, blah, blah. Access to trails is pretty damn incredible. It's really, really beautiful here. It's a very little charming town, like close to, San Francisco. So there's a lot of demand and stuff like that to live here. But, it's an old hippie town. Like this is where the Grateful Dead were from. And, and so there's still a lot of like that old guard here that claim to not want change, but sort of except when they really want change and they want it like yesterday. So they're like, this has been a huge issue. Like the town council just like flipped, and like it's been a nightmare in this town lately in terms of political like fighting and stuff like that about just locals trying to take back control of the town from younger town council members who are more progressive than they are, and blah 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 blah. Anyway. So I get everything that she's saying there, and I think that's probably the case for any like cool small town where you have people from different generations that are valuing it for different reasons. But it is interesting that like she blames the locals more than the tourists, because I do kind of feel like, I mean, if you go to a place like Truckee, which is the poster child for this now, so you're not going to get any. Obviously, you're not going to get any guff from the tourists, because you're one of them. Like, so like I can see how annoying it would get to be in a place that feels like that's like judging you by how many years you've lived there. I mean, that's about as unwelcoming as it gets. So I get that. I don't know what there is to be done about it. I mean, it's just kind of, what are you going to do? Small place, new voices. I mean, people are going to want to take places in new directions. I guess it's just how it goes. Yeah,
I wonder, we talked about, you brought up last week when we were talking about this, how, Patty O'Connell, when he was on the show, did a parting shot about, the mountain towns, and hey, ease up on the, before you were local, you were a tourist, and don't gatekeep in these towns. And it kind of reminds me a lot of that kind of point of view, because like, I just feel like there should be, listen, if you live in a desirable place, even if you're sort of like, digging your heels into the ground of like trying to keep people out, you're probably going to lose. The town I lived in up in Washington before moving down here, it was called Gig Harbor. And one reason we moved there is because it reminded us a lot about the coastal towns in New England that we liked. But it kind of had the same thing that Charlotte's writing about. And what you're talking about is that this sort of old guard, older community who did not want the town to grow at all. And it's the kind of place, it's right across the bridge there, across from on the west side of Tacoma. It's like that should have just been a place that people like living in the area, like, hey, let's go up to Gig Harbor and get lunch, or go out to dinner, or go out and get drinks at this place. And there's like three restaurants, and none of them are open past like 8:30 at night. And you can't go, and like there's no approvals for getting a new restaurant to like open up there. It was like next to impossible because they just wouldn't let it happen.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. You're on this tiny harbor on Puget Sound that's protected. So even in like bad weather days, you can kind of go out on it like on a paddleboard and not get beat up by the wind. And when the sun's out, there's Rainier, and there's seals and all sorts. It's incredible. So like, good luck. People like us, like who moved there, then we ended up moving away, being a little kind of disappointed in our experience there. It's like, you're not going to stop that either. So there's got to be some sort of healthy medium to be struck here.
Well, I think that this reminds me a lot of every time I go to Hawaii, I wonder why I've never lived there. And because it is, I'm a tropical. I'm tropical. That's, like I'm a tropical person by nature. I'd rather be there than anywhere else. Every time I go to Hawaii, I come back and I spend a few days, because it makes me feel better, on Reddit forums where people are talking about how they moved to Hawaii and regret it. And here's the reason why. Probably the same thing happened to Charlotte. Like, when you go to a place on vacation, it is a world different than when you go there to actually live there. And so I would even say the same thing about Fairfax a little bit. I love living here. Like, I wouldn't move. But it's definitely like after the feeling of like, oh my God, I live in this cute place. Like this place I used to just come to visit in the afternoons, and now I don't have to go home. This is home. Like that does wear off. And at a certain point, you're like, if I see that same dude in that same table at the coffee shop tomorrow, I swear to God, I'm going to strangle him to death. Like that sort of stuff starts to creep in.
That's what happens.
Or like, people were urging me to run for town council, and like I watched the backbiting and just the awfulness like shown to the people that are currently on town council. I'm like, I don't want a part of that, because like I walk around this town every day. Like I don't want to have to deal with that all the time. So there's a big difference. I mean, it's like if all you see is like the access to the trails and the beer you have at that awesome place that has like a cool patio overlooking the Appalachians, or I presume is what Davis is near. It's just it's not the same if you're like going to the grocery store there every day, and like when the weather's shitty and you can't ride those trails. Like it's just a different world. So I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like with Outside or any travel mag, like kind of burnishing these sort of little towns, it's like the one thing they can't do is show you what it's like to actually live in a place like that.
Well, good segue, because the second letter in our mailbag is from our guy, Joe Podacek over at Paddling Magazine. He's been on the show before. He sent me an email in response to the story, kind of highlighting how, all of these kind of cultivated stories actually do impact a town like Davis. And Joe writes, media placement absolutely has an impact on the interest in towns. It's why PR companies and destination marketing organizations have a viable business. More so, though, people want to go to places mentioned in magazines, books, movies, shows, songs, you name it. Look at the Twilight Film Tours in Forks, Washington, or Key West Post, the Hemingways and Jimmy Buffetts of the world. And it isn't just small towns. Media projected romanticizes and draws folks to live in San Francisco, Brooklyn, etc. The other point is that Davis is by no means a mountain town that no one has ever heard of. It's a gateway to one of West Virginia's best outdoor tourism regions, just a few hours from Pittsburgh or D.C. They have breweries, coffee shops, and an outdoor bouldering wall. Even if outdoorsy people in the region haven't gone, if they've lived in the Mid-Atlantic for a good chunk of time, they've probably heard of it. Same as Truckee in California, or just insert about any small outdoor town in Colorado. The article title should really be "The Mountain Town Everyone in the Outdoor Industry Who Left the East Coast for Colorado in College Never Heard of." I'm like, that's solid points by Joe.
You've been to West Virginia, right?
Just the tip of it. I've never really spent any time there.
I've only spent a couple days there.
Hey, you probably spent more time there than me, actually.
And it was just on a road trip across the country. We stayed in the capital, which is Charlotte.
Is it Charleston, maybe?
Oh, maybe it's Charleston. It's the same name as as a much more famous city in that same sort of zone. It might be Charleston.
Charleston, yep.
Charleston,
it is
yeah.
Charleston.
And Charleston was awful. Like I remember like walking around and being like, everyone looked so unhappy. Like it just felt like this, like the malaise throughout the entire town. But I mean, it was like one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Like West Virginia is absolutely spectacularly gorgeous. And so I get why people would move there. God, I'm sure you could buy a house in Davis for so cheap, like relatively speaking.
I guess the thing about Joe's email, it kind of reminded me kind of almost the point of why I brought it up of like, does this really have an impact? Do these articles really matter? Do people really
obviously, because Charlotte moved to Davis because of presumably an article like that, right?
Sure, right.
I'm still
so
waiting.
So it does have an impact.
I feel like it would be so much cooler if you go, okay, I can move to a place like Davis, West Virginia, right? And you'll kind of be aware of the baggage that you're going to bring and like the sort of tourist local divide, all that kind of stuff. Move to Fresno. Like Fresno is so close to the Sierra. I mean, it's like, unfortunately in the wintertime it's rarely clear there, so you can't always see. But I mean, on a random clear in the spring when the kind of the inversion layer flips and it's not so like dusty and gross, man, Sierra they are right there. And it's like you could buy an awesome house in Fresno for a couple $100,000. It's a big city. There's like a couple 100,000 people that live there, so like you can access all the stuff that you would access anywhere else. There's not a lot of culture. There's not like cool nightlife, anything like that. But like, no one's going to be mad at you. No one's going to be like, oh, you're fucking Fresno up. Like if anything, they'll be stoked. Like if you like meet somebody like at a Fresno and you're like, oh yeah, I moved here because it's close to skiing and like mountain biking and river and rafting, all this sort of stuff. And I'm just kind of dealing with living in Fresno the rest of the year. People will be fired up. Like you'd have friends instantly. So I feel like there's probably a wealth of towns that are not considered like charming, cool mountain towns that you could get all that same, you could find a much cheaper way of living.
And they're probably the next generation, right? I mean, if the Fresno, Davis, I think about, Park City was like almost became a ghost town at one point before skiing sort of saved it. And now it's like $1 billion there. So I think, they would be like, find those kind of tip of the spear towns that are on the up and up. So you're there at the beginning. I mean, imagine being like one of the first people to live in Aspen instead of now showing up and like, I'm going to live in Aspen. Like, original
totally.
idea.
I mean, it's like, honestly, it's kind of like me and Marin, it's like we literally, it was like we barely could afford this. Like just barely when we bought this house.
You're just setting up really good points against the things I have in the outline here. And we didn't even talk about this ahead of time because I also heard from a guy named Danny Twilley, who is kind of the guy working to elevate outdoor recreation in West Virginia. So he reached out. So we should probably have him on at some point to learn a little bit more about what a place like West Virginia, and I'm sure he can probably relate to what you're talking about in a place like Fresno. What's happening to kind of grow the outdoor recreation in these places where it really isn't entrenched yet, but then also like how these articles help or hurt from those who are actually out there doing the work.
Totally.
I mean, it's fun for you and I to sit around and just like make shit up, but we could probably get some experts on here. It'd probably be a good idea,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're saying we're not experts?
Dude, we're such experts.
I mean, we've lived in places. Like what else?
Dude, some would say I've lived in a place my
You've
whole
lived
life.
in so many places, by the way, too.
In the U.S., it's still kind of lame. Then I meet someone who's like, I've lived in 18 countries. I'm like, oh my God,
but that's not real.
Awesome.
Is that real? How do you do that? I don't believe that.
Well, all right. Well, since we're talking about West Virginia, there was another story that came out this past week that confirmed Gen X childhood fears everywhere as a hiker was rescued from waist-deep quicksand. Apparently, the unnamed hiker in question was wandering around Summersville Lake, located in Summersville, West Virginia, when they became stuck in mud that sucked them in and held them there.
Is this show sponsored by the West Virginia Tourism Board? I realize we're about to talk about something bad, but yeah.
Come on, throw us that money, West Virginia. Let's go. We're talking about you every week now. The mud was there due to the lake level being lowered for the winter. And unlike what we learned from pop culture, the risk of quicksand or thick mud isn't, getting sucked under and drowning, but really not just being able to escape once you're stuck. So I had two thoughts on this. The first was, dang, yeah, a quicksand story. I want to talk about quicksand. That's so cool. Not cool, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then the second was this building off, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, these sort of quote unquote hikers in peril stories. And I got a little note for outdoor media outlets. Please don't publish this shit until you can talk to the person in question. Because I went in excited, like I said, a quicksand story to read this. But who is this person? I have nothing but questions after leaving this article. We don't know their name. Why were they tromping around a muddy lake bed? It wasn't like there's a trail there. There's usually a lake there. What was the experience like getting sucked in? I want to know, when did they know what they were in trouble? How did the word make it to rescuers? And it's like none of that in the article. So just take a minute, get all that stuff, and
Colin,
then publish your article.
So naive,
Come on,
Colin. That's not how the internet works, my friend.
But it's what I
you
want.
clicked on the first article you saw that says something about quicksand. Like if they spent 2 weeks tracking this person down, I guess you would click on it again because you're going to click on every quicksand story. So even if it is, I guess
quicksand, the update.
I guess if it's 2 weeks
in.
later than everybody else, you'll still click on it. But still, I mean, that's just not. It's not how it works, man. As a media person, I guarantee that an editor saw that somewhere. It was like to their staff. All right, somebody write
we
about
get this up today.
Yeah, we need to get this up right now. Who can do this? And you're just like, I can. And it's like, well, you're not.
It's just so unsatisfying when you go in and you leave like, wait, was there anything actually? Yeah, they found a guy. They got him out.
They got a guy.
That's it.
They got a guy. And quicksand or mud, we don't know. It's just we're going to use quicksand. I mean, quicksand and mud are not the same thing.
That's true. I mean, that is a good point. Quicksand's in the title, but they did say it was mud. Maybe quicksand is mud.
Oh man, maybe it is. I mean, have you ever been stuck? Have you ever been like hiking somewhere where it's like super gloppy and gnarly, and you're for a second you're like, I'm not getting out of this. Does that ever happen?
And it pulls your shoe off.
It pulls
and
your shoe off.
That.
Yeah. And you're like, now what do I do? Because you can't like. It's like you got to put that foot down now, and you're like, shit. Yeah, I've had a couple moments where I'm like, oh no, just like. Is this what it's like? Like, oh no, because if God, that would be awful.
But can you imagine though? Like, just like you're walking along, and let's say, okay, this guy saw like, oh, there's a shiny thing down there. I'm gonna go check it out. Or it's like, oh, there's no lake here. There usually is. Let me just walk down and see what it's like to be where the lake normally is.
No, because I care about most of my shoes.
Like,
yeah,
waist deep. He was waist deep.
I mean, I guess I kind of feel this way about. You sent me a like a YouTube reel or something recently. Those dudes skating on that like crazy thin ice.
Oh, and it was like cracking while they're skating?
Yeah, and like we've covered that before in AJ, where there's that's a huge thing in like Sweden and Norway or whatever, and like people will like seek out those bodies of water where it makes like particularly cool sounds when they're doing it. And to me, obviously it's way more fun than just walking in mud, but it kind of feels like a quicksand scenario to me, where you're like on the verge of an inescapable like situation, probable death. I mean, I guess they don't think that, but I'm sure that all the time people are skating on thin ice and like whoop, and they go in. I'm sure that happens.
I fell through ice once skating.
Oh my god!
On a pond.
Oh my god! Well, how do you get out?
Well, I was in this was when I first started skating. It was cold enough winter. I was in Pennsylvania, and I just went on my own to this pond where I'd skated before, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to that pond. I started skating around, cracked through by myself. No one knows where I am. Same thing, like, classic, I know it's not outdoors, it's skating on a pond, but you know what I mean? Like, should have told someone where I was going.
It's pretty outdoors, man.
Pretty outdoorsy, yeah. And then, so I immediately started freaking out, like yelling. And then there was actually somebody, I guess, who was working in the park who started running towards me. By the time I saw them running, I just put my feet down and it came up to like halfway up my chest.
Oh.
So I was like, oh. Now I feel like an assoul for
How'd you get out,
and
like you're able to climb out on the ice and it didn't
leaned
break?
up on the ice and sort of rolled. It kind of broke a little bit, but I definitely got a little light hypothermia out of that. Like I had to sit in the car, like I didn't have any clothes. I had to drive back to my dorms when I was in college and like just warm up. So, hey you, outdoor retailers, listen up. You're sick of it, aren't you? Another sales rep walks in, they're showing off some flimsy, forgettable apparel line that looks like it was meant for a mall. The so-called outdoor brands churning out gear that won't make it past the doors of a Costco come Saturday. You need something else. You need gear built for granite and ice, for the steep and the cold. You need a brand that's stripped down and built up for real wilderness. You need Northwest Alpine. Back in 2010, Northwest Alpine set out to make the apparel that the big brands were forgetting. The others got caught up in fashion shows, but Northwest Alpine, they went back to the essentials. They make gear that's simple, light, strong, and made to last. Hey, and where do you think they make it? You know where it is? It's right here in the USA. If you're thinking, wait a minute, Northwest Alpine's Black Spider hoodie made with Polartec Power Grid is sewn up right here in the States? Yeah, you heard that right. And if you're tired of black, don't worry. They've got colors too. So here we are in a time when everything's uncertain. Costs are going up, tariffs are looming, and old bloated brands are hiking prices. Northwest Alpine's here with American-made gear ready to stock your shelves. Get in touch by sending an email to info@northwestalpine.com and set up a line showing today. Northwest Alpine, made here for all the right reasons. It's time for our weekly trip into Hausman's house. That's what it sounds like when you walk into Hausman's house.
Well, kind of, probably. There's little girls doing weird stuff. That's the sounds they make.
You want to tell people why? Because you have small children who are
yes,
little
I do
girls.
have small children. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, there's not just little girls in my house randomly, but they're probably playing some sort of
making weird noises.
like book that you thought you threw away, like the book that makes noise. And you're like, didn't you like you know me and my wife will be like, didn't you throw that away? No, I know. Yeah, I did. And then somehow the girls have it again.
You go out like the next day. You go out and like they're diving in your trash cans, pulling stuff out.
Well, there's raccoons are always diving in our trash cans. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in cahoots with the girls, and the girls like bring them like
they're working
really
with each
good
other.
garbage, and they're like, here's that book that your dad threw away.
All right. Well, this week our Rock Fight's intrepid reporter Justin Hausman waded back into the world of wildlife. Last week you talked about grizzly bears. This week, in your article for nationalparkstraveler.org, you talked about a proposed plan to eliminate hundreds of bears and wolves in Alaska by shooting them from helicopters and snowmobiles. On the surface, at least, doesn't sound great. So, what's happening up in Alaska?
Well, that's
Justin?
so it's not a new thing. They've done this for a long time. They used to let people do this. Like you could like book like a helicopter and just go fly
now
around.
now only robots get to do it.
Yeah, now only Waymo cars get up in the helicopter and shoot. But yeah,
Would you like Waymo more if it had like machine guns mounted on the side?
Yeah,
You'd probably be into it a little.
Yeah, probably.
Right. Sorry, keep going.
But yeah, so this isn't necessarily a new thing, but they have very strict management policies about how many animals they want. And it's this weird thing where we play God all the time. I have nothing to do with it. But we're like, okay, let's make sure there's like wolves where they're supposed to be, but not too many. And let's make sure there's bears where they're supposed to be, but not too many. You know, and like that's like the bears and the wolves are doing really well there. And so it's literally just culling because they feel like there's too many of them. And so,
is there data to back up why they feel that way?
I'm sure there is.
Like why there are too many? Like they say, well, here's the impact that too many are having on
somewhat.
X, Y, and Z.
So the other thing is that they, it depends on who you ask. Like the Alaska Department of Fish and Game or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service they'll trot out some stuff that says like, you know, if there's too many bears in an area, like X, Y, and Z can happen. The thing is though, it's Alaska. They'll just spread out. Or they'll handle it themselves, right? And also, I've learned this from talking to like biologists a lot about stories like this. Like nobody really knows what like the target number of anything is. Like we don't know. Like we have a loose idea. Like Yosemite can probably handle 50 black bears in the valley or something like. But like we don't really know. And like what does that even mean? Like 50 black bears so that what can happen? Like what if there's 60? What if there's 10? Like it doesn't. We don't. There's not like a perfect equilibrium of nature that like we can manage. So it's all really thorny. Anyway, but the like animal rights activists and environmentalists will point out that what they think is happening is that Alaska really wants to sell more caribou and like elk hunting permits, and so if they have fewer predators, there will be more caribou and more elk. And so
there it is. That makes more sense,
right? And so like they want there to be the area that is under discussion right now is like it's like 20,000 acres and it borders Denali and Lake Clark, which are two different like national park and preserves. Mm-hmm. And the idea, I guess, is that like you keep the wolf population down to like 35. That's it. They want there to be 35 wolves in this entire area. And so, but there's like hundreds, and like some of this data I was looking at, like, well, it's from the I think Alaska Department of Fish and Game itself talks about how like you'd have to kill like 100 wolves a year to maintain that. Like wolves breed pretty quick, relatively speaking. I mean that's a lot, and so it's like for what it just seems I don't know. It's hard to justify something like that to me, but I mean I don't know. I'm not a naturalist. Maybe it makes all the sense in the world, but I doubt it. And they also want to cull black bears and grizzlies. all like both kinds.
I guess that's what makes sense, right? Because, a lot of times when I'm looking for, like, what are we going to talk about here? I go through, like, where you put up articles. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And even this one, I'm like, okay, well, kind of what's going on with the wolves and the bears? And I'm like, oh, they'll have to kill, like, a handful because, like, there's been some development or something
it's not like
that, right? Like,
or that they're like attacking people, or no, it's nothing like that. It's just that they just feel like there's just too many.
When you said in the article there's hundreds, that's when I was like, what? Like, why? Why?
Yeah. And they the other thing that's really interesting is obviously like these areas border national parks, and the animals don't know where the borders are or care, obviously, and so it's like if you kill 100 wolves, that's way fewer wolves that you can see in like Denali, for example, and like wolf viewing in Denali is a huge like income generator for Alaska, and I saw some research that said like in 20. It was like a 10-year stretch or something like that, where it was like if you went to Denali to look at wolves, you had like a 45% chance of seeing one. And then like 10 years later, after they started doing some of this like wolf calling, you have a 1% chance. And it's like, well, who's gonna pay money to go to Denali to look at wolves if you're like almost certainly not going to see one? So it's thorny. But again, there's I'm sure that there are very well reasoned arguments for it. But it's also really, really fucking hard to like imagine a bunch of people in helicopters flying around just picking off wolves and bears and not being like, can't we like, is that really necessary?
Yeah, right. And like this isn't like we discovered a den of grizzly bears in like Providence, Rhode Island, or something like that.
Right.
I mean, it's Alaska. Well, there's nothing in Alaska for the most part. Like, let it just handle it. I'm sure this is a situation where you could probably let it handle itself.
It also is like we're worried that there might be a couple hundred too many of these predators in an area. Cool. But at the same time, like, it's probably a pretty good chance Trump figures out a way to like let the Pebble Mine go through and lets like drilling in Anwar go through, and it's like. So we're gonna be able, like that's gonna be okay to have all of that impact on the ecosystem, but like we better kill these like 100 wolves because of some like hypothetical like perfect balance of predator and prey. I don't know. Again, when there are too many predators in an area, it screws things up. But I don't think that I feel like that doesn't happen that much. Like it sorts itself out.
Well, when you entered the lottery to get to ride on a helicopter picking up bears,
I got the first one. I got the first lottery ticket. I'm there. I'm doing it.
You're just in your head like it's a predator. It's a predator like the alien.
Yeah. If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Exactly.
That's where I get to use a minigun from a Huey.
For years, outdoor brands have shouted to the skies, each claiming their gear is better, tougher, and smarter than the next. They bragged about seams and fabrics, about features you didn't need. And when the world started caring about the planet, those same brands tried to have it both ways, making the same old stuff, but slapping on a green label to soothe the conscience. But Livsen isn't like the rest. Livsen was born to help you strip it all down, to live with intention. Own less, live more. It's a simple creed, but simplicity is what matters most. We've been timeless since before we even had a name. Livsen grew out of a deep hunger for freedom, a love for this earth and the people who walk it. We don't obsess over the gear. We focus on the life the gear lets you live. Retailers, think on this. How many brands do you carry that are cut from the same old cloth, filling racks with sameness? Couldn't your floor use something different? A brand that doesn't just sell clothes, but sells a way of being? Livsen gear is built to last, to be repaired, to stick with your customers for a lifetime of trails, peaks, and adventures. In the Ozarks, we have an honest, gritty sensibility with a sharp edge of style. It's what happens when the love of the land meets a modern streak. And if you're wondering, Livsen's founder, Andrew Gibbs Dabney, can explain it better than anyone. Look, here's the straight talk. We believe in Livsen enough to put our name on it. Send in your Fall 25 preseason orders by January 15th. Mention this podcast, and you'll get the Rock Fight preseason special, a clean 2% off stacked on top of Livsen's own preseason program discounts. Don't wait. Stock the brand that's burning hot in the outdoor world, the brand that's here for the long haul. Be a rock fighter, not just another retailer. Livsen. Own less, live more. All right, man. Well, guess what?
We got parting shot time.
I know. It's time for the parting shot.
It's time for the party shot.
Let's do the parting shot. Who goes first this time?
I go first?
I don't remember.
You go first.
I don't remember. I will if you want.
You go first.
Okay. Now, excuse me. Colin, you always write yours out so nicely, and I never do.
I have to. I won't think of everything I need to say if I don't write it out.
I have another one that's near and dear to my heart this time of year. And it is the like disregard that a lot of mountain bikers have for ignoring the like pleas from trails associations to not ride after it rains.
Oh yeah, this is a good annual tradition right here.
It's not. It's like, it's been raining a ton up here lately. We've also had a lot of like wind events, so like the trails are pretty messed up. Like Tamarancho, our big, legal single track loop is like totally off limits for like probably a couple of weeks because there's just trees down and it's been raining too much. And they like, they'll block it off with a little chain across the entrance or whatever. But people, like you go up there and you'll just see people have ridden right around it and like just rutting the living shit out of it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you don't know when you see somebody riding around in their muddy, you don't know where they've been. Like, have they been on a fire road? Have they been doing that? And like, that's fine. But you're at the cafe, you're at the bar, you hear people, where'd you ride? And like, they're telling you the trails and you're like, today? Like it rained like 2 inches in the last 2 days. Like, I just don't get it. Like it's because I'm sure these are the same people who complain about the state of trails, like, oh, these trails are all rutted and like shitty in the summertime. It's like, well, why do you think that is? And it's, we're under such like pressure to be like perfect up here to open up more spaces for us. And so to see people like just disregarding that and riding around, and it also just like it really it like makes a lot of hard work for the trail crews, and I just don't get it. So I just if you feel like you got to ride and it's been pissing rain and you're like, oh, just one ride, like it's not going to matter. It does, and just think of the trails. Won't you think of the trails, especially if you're like paying money for trail maintenance, like anyway, and you're like donating to like causes and you still go out and ride. It's just a lot more people do it than should. It's one of those things where I know these are serious mountain bike riders. I know they care a lot about the trails and stuff, but I also know that you're riding the day after or even on the same day that it's raining, and like let it drain, let it rest, just chill out a little bit.
That's way more disappointing if you think these are people who actually will donate to like to trail building and things like that and actually care. Because like you really should know better.
I assume that, but
if you can't handle it, then and you can't go move to the northeast or the northwest or area where like you can usually ride where the trails don't get impacted. Like down here. Yeah, you can't do it. And also, by the way, it's still California. It's going to dry out pretty quick.
Yeah, it's true. It's not like you have to wait till March, Like,
right.
Like Tamarancho is usually like, it's like an inch a day, basically. Like if it rained an inch, you got to wait a day. If it rained 2 inches, you wait 2 days. Like that's generally the rule of thumb.
All right, well, my party shot today, not traditional outdoor, but I'm getting into the holiday spirit. And the only way to do that right, according to me, not according to you apparently, is the old Rankin Bass holiday specials, most of which are stop motion animations. So those are the ones I'm talking about, folks, if you don't know the name Rankin Bass.
I don't know
But a handful
that.
of them. Yeah, Rankin Bass. Are they? A handful of them are. A handful are drawn animation. And Justin, do you know how many of these there are? Or how many Rankin Bass specials
because you told me.
I don't. How many?
17.
Yeah, according to IMDb, there are 17 of these. I knew there were more than we kind of traditionally watch, but I didn't know there were that many. There's definitely some on there I have not seen and never watched.
I don't think I could tell them apart.
There's a few that it's tough. Even though there's 17, here are my top 5 best from 5 to 1. I think this is definitive. I don't want to hear anything different about it, but because I think I've nailed it here.
Okay.
And I'm starting with number 5 with a controversial take. I'm putting Rudolph at number 5. I think that's everyone's kind of universal number 1 is that Rudolph is the best one. You're wrong. It's number 5. I think the only redeemable parts of Rudolph is Yukon Cornelius, mostly for his... this fog is as thick as peanut butter line, which I think is classic.
Okay.
The Bumble, excuse me, and then the head elf who yells, "The tenor section was weak," which was a running joke in my family for like decades.
That's pretty funny.
The rest of the show is not great.
Yeah.
Number 4 on the list, I have Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Okay.
Now, I think this would be higher if not for the acid trip song that the future Mrs. Claus sings when she's like falling in love with Kris Kringle. Like I hate that.
I don't remember. I don't remember it. I don't remember this movie at all.
It's bad.
Okay.
But the other big ding on the show, and I think largely an entertaining special, but the beginning of the special, Baby Klaus arrives to a bunch of toy makers named Dingle, Tingle, Ringle, Wingle, and Zingle, but then they named the baby Chris.
Well, there's not another... They already went to Z,
Come on, it could have been a Bingle. I mean, like, let's go.
Yeah,
like, what are you doing? You're really going to pull a Chris out of your ass with this one?
I'm going with there was an alphabetical thing. They started with Dingle. They didn't expect to have all these kids. And then they went Tingle, Ringle, Wingle. And they probably thought Zingle was the last one. They have another one like, well, shit. We can't go backward in the alphabet.
What happened to the 21 other Kringle kids? Like, did they die? Like, what's going on? It wasn't
probably.
I guess.
I mean, most babies died until like the 20th century. So yeah, probably.
The Winter Warlock took out 21 of the Kringles, so they ran out of names. But all right, number 3 on the list is "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," which is a truly bizarre tale of a town trying to endure itself to a pissed off Santa Claus, told through the lens of human and rodent patriarchs. But I think it really works. I think it's kind of underrated. We don't talk about this special enough. This is not a stop motion one. This is a hand-drawn animation one. Number 2 on my list is Frosty the Snowman, which I got to think even you will sit through, even if you're not a fan of these. I think it's a nearly perfect holiday special. It's like, 18 minutes long. It's, it's tight. It's good. If I could only keep one holiday special, it might come down to Frosty or the Grinch. I'd rather have one of the shorter ones. That's how highly I rate it. But even still, I think Rankin Bass truly knocked it out of the park with my number one pick, which is The Year Without a Santa Claus. And I think that show can get dinged for some of the other problems that exist in the other specials, like songs and some other things. But it ascends above the rest for two reasons, and those two reasons are The Snow Miser and Heat Miser. I think you can't have that duo in a special and not give it top dog status. So that's my parting shot.
I just want to, you know what I want to do here? I want to, that's good. It's a good parting shot. People are ranking Rudolph wrong. But I want to just drop in a couple, if I may, I'd like to drop in a couple, holiday movies that we've been enjoying, basically over and over and over and over and over again at my house, because it's cold and it gets dark early and we watch a lot of movies now at night with the girls. If you haven't seen Klaus, check that out. We may have I probably got so geeked about it last year that we probably talked about it during the Rock Fight last year.
I think we may have talked about it before.
But man, that's a good movie. Sort of like we did, because I wanted to talk about it as like an outdoor story, because it's like Klaus is like a woodsman who like lives out by himself. It's a beautiful story. So it's the coolest Christmas movie I've seen in a long time.
We'll watch that this weekend.
Really enjoying That Christmas, also on Netflix, also an animated story with some kind of harrowing outdoor elements to it. It's worth watching. But then what really surprised me, what absolutely shocked me in terms of how much I enjoyed it, was Eddie Murphy's Jingle All the Way. Have you seen that?
No, isn't that Schwarzenegger's movie?
Oh, maybe it's not called Jingle All the Way. Hold on, let me look it up. I thought it was. Maybe it's called something else. Eddie.
Is this a recent movie?
Yes.
Wait, Netflix got Eddie Murphy to do a Christmas movie?
Yeah. I'm not even close. Of course, it's not called that. You're right. That is the Arnold Schwarzenegger one. It's Candy Cane Lane. And it came out.
That's a pretty big. How did you confuse?
I don't know.
That's amazing.
Because they all blend in, the names. But
that's true.
It came out last.
But still, how much money did they pay Eddie Murphy to be in that movie? Do you think? Like
not enough.
Hundreds of millions?
No, they don't have that much. He did a great job. He did a really good job. It was a really fun holiday movie. I was so surprised at how much I enjoyed it. So if you're looking for something new, Candy Cane Lane, Netflix is doing well. All three of those are on Netflix. You can tell we watch a lot of Netflix in this house. But yeah. Candy Cane Lane.
We do. But there's agreement though that Christmas Vacation is still the undefeated number one.
Yeah,
of all
we haven't
time,
even watched that this year, and the girls won't let us watch Elf for some reason. I'm not
the biggest Elf fan.
I like it.
I like parts of it. I think the end it really unravels, and I can't stand it. But the first 2/3 are pretty great.
Yeah.
But then
We're just at a point where it's like they want to watch TV every day. It's too cold to be outside at night. It's too dark too early, so we're like, fine. But
it's the end of the year. We're all winding down.
It's just Christmas movies. It's fine. Christmas movies. We can watch those on loop. So we do.
All right, man. Well, we can wrap it up there. I think we will be back next week. I think you can expect we'll drop an episode on Christmas Day. That's the plan right now. So we're going to record early in the week, so you will get an episode with Justin on Christmas. It'll be your Christmas present.
Yeah.
Just
Merry
Christmas with
everybody.
the houseman.
Yeah. That'd be
You'll love that.
It'd be nice for you.
He'll show up in a Waymo, and he'll bring you presents.
Yeah.
The Rock Fight's a production of Rock Fight LLC. For Justin Hausman, I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And he's here to take us out, not with a Christmas song, but with the Rock Fight song. It's Krista Makes. He's going to sing it for you right now. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.